Today we will continue to explore Métis issues, particularly those relating to the evolving legal and political recognition of the collective identity and rights of the Métis in Canada. This evening we'll hear from two groups. The first is Metis Nation Québec, which will be followed by Metis Nation of Canada. Before hearing from our witnesses, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce the members of the committee who are present this evening. Senator Nick Sibiston from the Northwest Territories, Senator Larry Campbell from British Columbia, Senator Jacques Demers de Quebec,
Bonjour.
Senator Dennis Patterson from Nunavut, and Senator Nancy Green-Rain from British Columbia. For the first hour, members of the committee, please help me in welcoming from the Metis Nation Québec, Claude Aubin and Claude Riel Lachapelle, both chairpersons for their organizations. Witnesses, we look forward to your presentations. Thank you for coming. Pardon me. And so you know, following your presentation, there will probably be questions from the senators. I hope that's okay. I'll let you decide which of you goes first. Thank you very much. Both of you turn the light on.
It's up to us now.
Bonsoir, oui.
Well, as we're going to do it, Claude doesn't speak very well English, so he'll address the.
We have simultaneous translation, sir, if he wishes.
But that's okay. I want to thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart to invite us to this committee, because for us it's just like a new beginning. It is something that we've been waiting for a long time, because to us it's just like a recognition, some kind of recognition. I would like to start by saying this, to put you in the mind of what we want to convey to you as who we are as Métis people in the province of Quebec. For us, the Métis are the spiritual writings, living parchments of any great peace or marriage between the First Nation and the European peoples. The Métis are living physical and spiritual treaties sealed in DNA. Why I'm saying this is because I would like to tell you a story. Because the way that we do things here is we do stories. I brought with me something that was never brought outside the Confederacy when we gathered in the Wabanakis. It's called the Great Peace of Montreal. This box in front of you is the treaty box of 1701, the original box. As it is written at the front, 1701. For us, the Métis, this is the beginning of our history, our true history. Because we know that when the French gathered with the First Nation people at the time, they knew that something would happen. There was a political genius, and his name was Condiaronk. And he was foreseeing all kinds of things to come on this land, and he knew that he had to do something. He knew that those French-speaking people wouldn't leave, they would stay. So he knew that he had to form an alliance. So I am that treaty today as a Métis. And the thing is that many people are wondering why Métis people hold such items. Well, because it reflects who we are. So just imagine, this thing was done 311 years ago. And the thing is, it reflects the speeches that were given at the time among the First Nation. And the thing is that they were saying that your people will marry our people, and there'll be a brand new nation of people to be born. Well, you're talking to a descendant of those people. A lot of time, the Métis in the East are confronted with the Métis of the West. Why? Because sometimes the history is not clear. We have difficulty to see that history have a beginning. It doesn't start in the middle. And when you start joining this history together, comes a greater understanding of who we are as Métis people. We're not only people of mixed ancestry. We are people with cultural continuity. And here is the living proof of that cultural continuity. Besides that, I brought one of the medal of the Royal Proclamation. I brought a medal of the 1757 treaty made between the British and the forefathers of my mother. You don't want that. Here's a medal that was given to my ancestors, Métis ancestors, from the War of 1722, just before the British tried to invade the French. And my people joined in force with them. Of course, because they were our allies, because they were also our relatives. This story is a long, old story. I want that when I leave this place here, then we leave this place here, that you really see who we are. Forget about my blue eyes, or my lighter skin, or my white hair. Listen to what we're going to say to you, to make you understand how connected we are as Aboriginal people. Métis, my grandfather, for example, I have to relate, when I talked about this, I have to relate to my own ancestors. My great-grandfather signed treaties, Wabanaki treaties. His name was Saint-Aubin, Ambrose Saint-Aubin. They define him as a tall, blonde guy with blue eyes. That was what he was. Because his father married a Passamaquoddy woman, Maliseet. And the thing is that he stayed there and he helped his Aboriginal First Nation relatives into the wars or into life. The thing is that when I go to my territory, to Wabanaki territory, which is Quebec and New Brunswick, I don't have to do a genealogy to tell who I am. I don't have to do that. I have cultural continuity of what I am as a Métis, what my father was, my grandfather was, my great-grandfather was. And when I go to the Confederacy, they know who I am, and they're waiting for me to bring those things. It's very important. And the thing is when I go down, and I stop in Tobique, and I talk to the Nicholas, they're related to me. They know who I am. I am not a Maliseet. I'm a Métis, and they know that. We've always been Métis. And when I arrive to the Confederacy and I talk and I speak about the box in the detail, they know what it is all about. And when I talk to others as I come in, they know who we are. They knew it for a long time. This is our connectedness as Métis people with First Nation people. But we always stayed in that marge. And when my grandfather from my mother's side, which was Huron-Wendat, they didn't ask him for his genealogy. They knew who he was because of his families also. But the thing is that he was a Métis because you know what happened? In 1852, when they started to create the reserve system, the one that wouldn't comply within the Indian Act had to stay out. He was a Martineau because his mother married a Martineau. And then they stay in the 40 arpents, we say in Quebec. But they knew he was a Métis also. And they knew he was tied up to the community. But he had to always see himself as a Métis. He didn't want to be. He owed respect to his mother, to his father. That's what he was. So you see the connection. And from there also is that they elected him a chief so he can sit on the council, so he can talk about the people, the relatives that live outside the communities. But you see, the thing is that those communities developed outside the First Nation communities and develop their own entities, their own cultural perspective. And the thing is that was the beauty of it, is that we were who we were. We were respected from what we were. Unfortunately today, like everybody wants to look at that in a different manner. Everybody thinks that we have to go through genealogy to define who we are. Well, I'll tell you something. My wife is Cree from Saskatchewan, and if she had to go through the process of going through genealogy, I don't think she would be recognized under the Indian Act. But the thing is, under her family clans, everybody knows who he is. She is. The same thing with me as a Métis. We're always intertwined so closely. That's what a Métis is all about. We're so intertwined all the time with First Nation that they like it or not as a secret. Sometimes that's pleased them, sometimes it doesn't please them. But that's what, for me, I can convey to you what the Métis is all about. Larry Chartrand, Dr. McGregor addressed you very important issue, legal issues. I don't want to go there. I want that you remember that the Métis, that Métis of Quebec that came here, came to try to expose who he is by tying himself up with his people, all his relation. And the thing is that that's what makes me what I am. Never forget that. I am not a Métis because I have a native ancestry in my family. I am a Métis because I'm a native person that have non-native ancestry in his genealogy. But I owe respect to that because this is the one that made me. You see, if Senator Nicholas was here today, she would understand what I'm talking about. Because Senator Nicholas comes from the same original community than my community and my father. And her relatives and my relatives always been friends. But the thing is that some are First Nation people and very strongly identified to it, and some are Métis. And I'll stop at that because the thing is, for me, I just wanted to point out the importance of that. That what defines us is our cultural continuity, as Aboriginal people.
Merci.
Thank you.
Monsieur Lachapelle, avez-vous les comments aussi?
Mr. Lachapelle, would you have any comments to add? Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting us to be heard here tonight. So, greetings to all the senators and their team. As you may have known, that Mr. Claude Riel would be here in Ottawa, and as my mother would say, there's only one who succeeded in our family, and he was hung for his efforts. Yeah, in fact, that's my family, Louis Riel. The reason I'm here tonight is I've been an actor, a witness, if you will. I have seen what's been going on with the Métis and First Nations people since the 60s here. And I've witnessed a great deal of evolution and change from the decision of the Pauli decision, Supreme Court. Many organizations have claimed Métis status in Quebec. And to us, this is a bit of an affront. An indignity, because we are fewer than 3,000 in Quebec. We are linked, my family, my clan is directly linked to those in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. These are our cousins, our relations, all our relations. And it's important to understand that even if those people say that are of mixed blood, doesn't mean that they are Métis people. We've always maintained our family clan, our culture, our ties. We speak Michif. We We learned it at mother's knee, at grandfather's knee. We speak it directly with our grandparents. Those Métis that are found in the west of Canada all come from Lanaudière area in Quebec. Saint-Capin-de-Brandon, Lanaudière, and it was all linked with the fur trade and the Northwest Territories Company, or Hudson's Bay. We've always maintained our family clans and our family traditions. We've always been very, very close with First Nations. Distinct, yes, but close. And over the last few years, perhaps, it was a mistake that we, Métis, made in Quebec, because we do have family and family members within the Indian First Nations, and we wanted to live our life as Métis in closer alignment. So when Bill 61, we're not, quote, half-breeds. We are Métis. And we've lived outside of our communities. When C-31, we were considered to be Métis Indian Métis. I mean, we're not 50-50 mixes. We are Métis. I have members of my family which still live on reserve, and they suffer quite a bit of discrimination because they're living there on tolerance. When the band council decides that they don't need to be tolerated, they can kick them off, and if they need them for the numbers, they include them. We could discuss at great length what's been going on since the Pauli decision in 92. A lot of people are claiming Métis status in order to claim some rights, hunting or fishing or other rights. Well, we can't claim territorial rights as Métis in Quebec. Why? Because we don't have territory. The territories literally belongs to First Nations. And if ever we were to make territorial claims, we'd have to claim them from First Nations. We're squatters, if you wish. Look at history. I mean, it's a little different. It's very different than the Metis Nations in Saskatchewan or Manitoba. But here, this is the motherland, the source, the cradle of Métis. Out west, it's their homeland. So it's very important that Claude Aubin and myself have this privilege, this opportunity to come and explain these things to you, and I thank you very much. I thank you for allowing us to share with you these points of information, which are important. And let's be frank. Once again, we've been set aside by the Quebec government, for example, together with some other Métis associations, etc., but we've been sidelined again. One of our cultural traits is that we are witnesses. We're silent witnesses. We are observers, spectators. We're not actually in there. We're not the warrior class. We're watching what's going on. And we're here tonight. We have an opportunity to speak up and be heard, explain our family clan system, our language. We're pleased to be able to do so, to have the opportunity. And if there's anything we can do to solidify our identity, to be better known, we'd be very pleased with that as a result here tonight. And, well, that would be it for my introduction, and we'd be very, very happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much. And we're going to open it to questions. Senator Campbell first.
And welcome. I'm interested that you have proof going back to 1701, which is something that I don't believe we've heard while studying this issue. And perhaps it's because you're the first, I believe, the first Métis that we've heard from Eastern Canada. My first question is, what is the gap when Mr. Lachapelle speaks? There doesn't seem to be any gap between Métis from Red River and Métis from Quebec, that they're cousins. And yet, I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken, but I didn't get that feeling when we heard from the other Métis group, and I'm having difficulty understanding that disconnect.
It will be, I guess I'll lower my tone because I thought I was in the lodge doing a presentation of the Confederacy. So, This is quite interesting what you're saying, but the thing is that, again, it comes back to the importance of history. And we have to educate ourselves also. And what's happening is that we are making big move with Western Métis. For example, the Métis of Saskatchewan right now, we're negotiating a pact, a unity pact with them. And they started to realize that their families and our families are the same. And they start to realize also by learning a little bit more about the beginning of the Métis history, that those guys, those Dumont, those Riel, that went westward, were already Métis when they left. And you know what? They left. They're learning that they left for the same reason that some left the prairie to go to Batoche and to end up in Lac La Biche and to go further and further all the time, for the same reason, to try to find a safe place. And the beauty of it is that many of them came back. You know, the Gariupi came back. Some of the Riel came back. Some of my family came back. But it's not all the Métis family that went westward. But there's always was one. So the thing is that there is beauty. If you would have seen us when we received those medals last week for the War of 1812, we were all together. It was beautiful. Like there was Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec. We were side by side. We all recognized ourselves. It's just a question of time. I have great faith that the Métis Nation will be part of the Métis National Council that we consider as the Métis Nation, you know, of Canada. And I think that the Métis Nation of these 4 provinces are extending their hands. They start to see the importance of bringing together the big family.
But don't you think that it would be much more powerful? For instance, I see that we have Mr. Fekay, I hope that's how you pronounce it, from the Métis Nation of Canada. Why would he not be sitting at the same table as you? Why would we not have the most powerful portion, which would be all of you sitting here together, telling us what? I mean, I actually get it. I get it now in listening to what you had to say. But I can tell you that's not what we've heard, and I wonder why we just don't see the same thing as you described with the awarding of the medals last week.
Moi, j'aimerais souligner quand même il y a un fait, parce qu'on est à contact de plus en plus.
We are in greater and greater contact with people from the West, particularly Saskatchewan. Well, as I told you, I'm a Riel. That's my family. That's my lineage. Some are Gariupi, Morin, Chartrand. Those are my second cousins out there. At Batoche was a shock, a real shock to the Métis people. And it was a shock also to come up against the Catholic Church and the St. John the Baptist Society, who mixed up, let's say, Franco-Manitobans and Métis, and it wasn't good. It was not a good thing to be a Métis. We were frightened. We were scared. That was the reality. We withdrew. We ghettoized ourselves. We hived off, and that's the situation that you live with today. When somebody says, "Oh, he's a Chartrand," I'd like to see the chair of the Manitoba Métis come forward. He's my cousin. He's my cousin. It's a little bit like the New Brunswick Acadiens or the Louisiana Acadians. We have a common heritage, a common background. We were talking with people from Saskatchewan just quite recently, and we do have a problem because after 150 years, we go to Quebec and La Naudière. Why? Because the Northwest Company established itself there under McTavish. We're not saying so. The archives are there to prove it. Now, we're not many, 1,000 to 1,500 in Quebec perhaps, and always vulnerable. And we're trying to renew our family links. It's our nation, it's our people, and we speak Métis. It's the same Métis, whether it's in the St. Lawrence Valley or out in the Red River Valley, it's the same Métis. And we are directly linked with those settlements in the West. It goes back to the fur trade, the coureur de bois. It's the same. It's the same. Of course, politics and policy intervened. In the meantime, it's 300 years. But it's a lesson that's important to understand. In the early 90s, okay, there was the Quebec Association of Indians, and we formed the Laurentian Alliance of Métis and non-status Indians. We were very few in number. There were some that came back pejoratively, the 31ers. When that bill came in, some reclaimed their band numbers, were able to anyway. But Métis, who were Métis and have been Métis, 15 or 20% of those who were leading the Laurentian Alliance, changed the organization, call it the Aboriginal Association of Quebec. Now, once again, the Métis, those who consider themselves Métis, true Métis, once again were overlooked and bypassed and set aside. So this is where they formed the Metis National Council. Now, we were flooded by these new arrivals, these C-31 guys. And out west they were saying, look, they're still playing Indians again. So that's the marginalization that we feel. And that's why it's very important for us to come here and try to clear up and demystify all of this. Now, as we said last week, we were given some medals, the War of 1812. This was the very first time that we have joined up with our family and our distant cousins from the West, of course. Canada wasn't in existence in 1812, but our family groupings were out there in 1812. So we're trying to clarify the history, the archives, the facts, and we appreciate the platform to be here. We're extremely pleased to be here, to have the opportunity to try to draw some light onto these issues. It goes back to 1701. We didn't find it at Winners or Walmart. It's not made in China stamped on the bottom of it there. This is for real. We have our families, we have our links, and those in Saskatchewan will be coming to Quebec saying, let's do something. We have to do something. Whenever we're drawing up our family tree, we have to come back to Quebec to find the links. That's great. That's wonderful. It's a page of history that's being brought back to light. If I can intervene a minute.
But we do have other people who want to ask questions, and I don't want us to lose the opportunity to ask more questions. If you can come to an end, I'm okay, and if you're at an end, that's fine as well. Thank you very much. Senator Campbell, follow-up? Is that good?
Thank you. That's good.
Senator Demers, s'il vous plaît.
Premièrement, M. Aubin,
Monsieur Aubin.
respect that, so you didn't talk too loud. Écoutez, moi j'écoutais ça attentivement.
I was listening very faithfully to what you had to say, and my question would be, well, I have a few questions, let's say, and perhaps you can put them together and see what kind of answer you can give me. Do you feel that you are at home in Quebec? That would be my first question. Do you feel that you've been neglected, or maybe that's not the right word, overlooked because you're francophones among Metis nations? And often when one is a francophone, whatever's going on outside of Quebec or out west, it's distant. I see that Mr. Aubin has a smile on his face. So my first question, do you feel accepted? Do you feel at home, welcome in Quebec? Do you feel that you are perhaps sidetracked, or do you feel accepted by Métis outside of Quebec? in Quebec on the part of the Quebec government, we do not feel respected as natives, as Métis. There's an underlying dynamic that has to be understood, and it was raised by Senator Campbell. It has to be said. The Métis of Quebec, we've kept an older version of French, if you will. And all those out west, with all the respect I have them, have been assimilated into English communities. A lot of them are what are called country-born. It's not meant pejoratively, but half-breed. They're Anglophone, country-born. Their connections to the original Francophone Métis population has been cut. It's been disrupted. So tomorrow, if the National Council, Métis Council, would recognize the Métis in Quebec, do you realize what that would mean? What impact? The repercussions. We'd have to bring back Méchif, because now we have Méchif, which is based in French, and Méchif, which is based on Cree. That would really upset the apple cart politically. But when the First Nations decided that their language is their language and they have every right to learn it and use it and express themselves, they had to repossess their languages. Well, Metis nations find themselves in that situation today. Those in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, they come and visit and they say, well, we're anxious to have you come and visit us. We're not going to bear arms again there. We're welcoming you with open arms. We want to talk to you. We have to get a solution. Of course, any change will breed resistance as well. That is just a matter of repatriating their identity. Identity is history, and history is the linkages among and between families. If you go to Saint-Laurent, they speak Méchif based on French. If you go to Saskatchewan, there are some communities where they speak Méchif, which is based on Cree, but it's still Méchif. These are dialects. And then there's a Méchif which has been absorbed into the English. So if we want to reconnect culturally, linguistically, I think things will fall into place. I am convinced. I've been explaining this for 25 years. I've been trying to explain this. I'm trying to draw stories from my people. I'm aware that we have to protect culture. We have to protect our people. One thing that is vital in Quebec, anybody could say, well, I have a grandmother or a great-grandmother in my background, so I'm a Métis. Oh, boy, I can't stand it when people tell me that, really. A Métis implies that there's a cultural continuity, that there is some respect for the past, and there's a linkage for the past. It's not a matter of gaining rights or whatever. I don't have a penny. I mean, I'm not drawing big benefits. I'm not drawing any special status or privileged tax breaks or anything like that. That's why it's important to repossess our own identity. So in response to Senator Campbell, we can't say that tomorrow we'll just, set off on the great venture of becoming a Metis Nation of Canada and, sure, $300, here's your card, boy, you're on board. No, that's not the way it works. No, not at all. Categorically, no. I could never accept that type of situation. It's just unfathomable. I can't. I almost use a word that would be expletive anyway. I suffered from being a Métis all my life. And if somebody says, oh, that's great. I know my great-grandmother's was some kind of Indian, and, oh, good, that means I'm a Métis. Well, come on, it goes a bit deeper than that. Not just genealogy and family tree. I want to see how he lives or where he's been, what he does. In Quebec, Senator Demers, you know that a lot of people will recognize that they have some ancestor who was somehow native blood, but does that make him a Métis? There's a big difference there. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. I come from the Northwest Territories, which is far away, and I come from a Métis family that originally came from the Red River Valley in Manitoba. So this is my first encounter with Métis from the far east. But when you look at the way our history developed, as the French people and British people came into our country in various parts, invariably they mixed. They met with First Nations people, and after a while got to like each other and mixed, and that's kind of the birth of the Métis. It's a phenomena that happened that's unique to Canada, I think, and I know that in reading history in the North, we've had different explorers from Britain and that have come into Canada, generally from the St. Lawrence area, worked their way west and up into the Northwest Territories to discover area. And people like Mackenzie, who discovered who's the big river in the north is named after him, and Franklin and Simpson. And in the history books, in terms of the groupings, the people that these explorers have, they are some what they call Canadians. And I just assume these would be the half-breed or the Métis people that the explorers brought with them, because they're good and hardy, coureur de bois type people that are familiar with exploring and willing to go far away from home and be away from their countries for years and years in some cases. So I guess, in our part of the North, we would have seen or heard the Métis who were called Canadians. Am I right in judging or thinking that part of these explorers group that were called Canadians were really Métis people from the east, from upper and lower Canada, as it were?
Si vous permettez, Monsieur le Sénateur.
Well, if you'll allow, Honourable Senator, there's history and there's histories. When if you win it's a victory, if you lose it's a massacre, right? Depends on your perspective. So our history, we have to be very careful as to which history. There are formal histories, official histories, and there are popular or folk histories. If you take a look at Batoche, well, MacDonald wanted to send Anglophone troops to put down the Northwest Rebellion. If you take a look at the archival papers, the first battalions left to defeat the Métis in Manitoba. They were not English. They were not Anglophones. There were two regiments. There were the Voltigeurs du Québec and the Fusiliers of Montreal, from Montreal, together with the Coupé Plat, with the Saint Jean-Baptiste Society, all involved there with pomp and circumstance. So this is not me, little Riel, that's telling you this. You take a look at the archives in the Société Saint Jean-Baptiste. The banners, the flags, and the standards are being exposed in their museum in Montreal itself. So don't you think that we could take a look and try to re-put the puzzle back together again and talk to each other? So perhaps in response, and directly to Senator Demers' question, well, we're a little uncomfortable. We feel a little uncomfortable. We have a hard time figuring out who we are in a way. I speak French, but I also speak Michif. That's my language. So where do we find our place, our place in society? When we look at the Charter, we talk about First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, but the Métis is very poorly defined. And we're not Québécois because we speak French. Those Métis in the West speak English. It's the primary majority language. The Innu, not the Inuit, the Innu, the Montagnais, the Nescapi, they speak French, not English, because that's their context, that's their reality. They live in cohabitation with the French population in Quebec.
Chairman, I certainly don't want to be I don't want to be critical and this is just my idea. This is just an intuitive sort of thing. But I get the general feeling that the French were more ameliorable, or the French are more like the native people, you know. And this is just me from my life experience, you know. Historically, it seems like when the British came in with the Hudson's Bay and so forth, people like Simpson, you know, the governor, and his nephew, Thomas Simpson, who our little town is named for in the north because he went up in that area. But it seems as if the British interaction with the native people was not as thorough. They didn't mix and didn't marry. Maybe they had mistresses. There's stories about the British having mistresses, but then invariably they went back to Britain and left their wives. But the French, I get the impression that they were kind of stuck together, and they were more open to forming relations. It's the same with Scottish people. A lot of the people that came into the west and north, the Hudson's Bay got people from Courtney Island, and a lot of them were Scottish. And because they were tough, similar environment as where they come from, very tough, and they all intermarried and are willing to marry native people. And so I get the impression that the French had very good relations with the native people. And so do you find that from your own history and experience?
Well, malheureusement, non.
Unfortunately, no. In fact, the Anglophones, well, I'll be frank, in Quebec were far much more accepted by the Anglophones. They're more tolerant or open to our existence than the Francophones. In the past, there was this chauvinistic attitude on the part of the French. And as I said, the Catholic Church, the Saint Jean Baptiste Society, were against the fact of metisization in Manitoba. And this continues today. It's considered miscegenation. So it continues in the context, carries on today out in the West. So we're here in the East, and we don't agree with that. We don't want to, open up a political debate here, but we can't accept that. Even today, in Quebec, I mean, you have to face reality. There is a Métis fact in Quebec. You can't just ignore it, and it's the elephant in the room. I mean, to respond to your question, though, Mr. Senator, I'm not saying that the openness was perfect, but yes, the Anglophones, in fact, were a lot more easy, more accepting than the Francophones. For political reasons, mostly.
For sharing your stories and your history, which I find fascinating, but I'm not surprised, because I knew all along that the voyageurs and the explorers who came out and settled the West came from Quebec and came from a very, very strong people. And it only made sense to me that these were people that were really special because they had the best of two cultures. So I congratulate you for continuing with your culture and having so much passion for it. We are doing this study, and we really, in the end, are going to write a report with some recommendations. I'm becoming more and more convinced that our recommendations aren't about entitlements and registries and things, but about the culture and the importance of the culture and the history. And somehow this history has to get celebrated to all of Canada, which isn't the case, or hasn't been the case. I think when I grew up and went to school, for instance, it was maybe a half a page in my grade 8 textbook about Métis people, really nothing. And now I recognize that most settlements in British Columbia, the founders were Métis. So I just wanted to ask a few questions that we sort of have been asking along. just like a little overview of your organization. How many members do you have? Do you have a membership? You have a membership criteria, and do you have a registry of members? Okay, how many members do you have?
About 2,000, roughly.
Okay.
That's include adults and children.
And what are the membership criteria for the Métis Nation of Canada?
Hopefully,
Sorry, not the Métis Nation of Canada. Sorry. For the yeah.
well, the thing is, we have a citizenship code, so it would be quite exhausting to go through the detail of it. But the thing is, basically, it's all based on family clans.
Okay.
So we know our families, we know who we are, and we go from there. But the thing is as you know, regulation sometimes required in the past. Like we're trying to get away from that as we start to understand that genealogy will not resolve anything on our own identity. Our own identity is that when we know who we are and who our family clans are. And I think that's what we're leading towards now.
Yeah. So do you have membership cards, or you just know who you are?
We have citizenship cards in order
cards.
to, yes. And it's once in a lifetime. It's not something that you have to renew. It's not a membership, it's citizenship.
And that's, so with the young people, you teach them about
That's right.
what it is to be a Métis
That's
citizen
right.
in your, okay.
That's right.
That's great. And of course, your organization is engaged in activities to promote and protect Métis culture. And
That's right.
what would be an example of some of your cultural activities that you do?
Okay, first of all, we have no funding, so we are self-served. We do the things we always been doing it. So if we have to organize something, we mobilize our people for the cooks to do things, and we mobilize people to do the shelters. We don't have hotel, so we build lodges in the bush. That's what we do. So when we have our gathering, we do it around a fire, outside in the bush. People bring food, and we do our meetings that way. And whatever paper and pencil we have, we try to use it. And we go with consensus all the time. And this is one aspect of what we do. We do other kinds of activities. We participate in festivities when we can, because it's very difficult for us to mobilize outside, for example, to do something, because the cost is phenomenal, and gas and whatsoever. So we're very selective when we try to project that. But when we're invited, we go and we do it.
Is there a place that is very special to you that you would have your gatherings at on a regular basis?
Like right now, we have a place, yes, in near Quebec City, yes, that's in Saint-Raymond-Port-Neuf. You can see on our website we have a specific place.
And is that place...
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off, Senator. I have two more questions, and we're closing this off in about 5 minutes for the next witness.
I'm not going to go again.
Then you just stole Senator Campbell's questions away.
Okay, I just want... So there is a place that's identified now. Who owns that place? Is it owned by your nation?
Private land.
Private land?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically my land and somebody else, friend's land, yes.
Okay.
And a neighbor that is willing to... We have about 50 acres. Yeah.
Without funding, you managed to keep coming together and celebrating and building. So I congratulate you for that, and
yes.
I think really I'm very happy to hear that, so thank you very much.
Also, and I apologize, I missed it, Senator Meredith from Ontario came in a couple minutes late, and I forgot to mention. He's next questioner, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for appearing before us this evening. I was intrigued, Mr. Lachapelle, is it correct? I may have mispronounced your name, my apologies. But I was impressed by the Back to Batoche gathering this summer in Saskatchewan. I was exposed to it as somebody, again, you know, participating with the members of this committee, and to learn of what has transpired, and with Louis Riel and so forth. But there's a spirit of coming together. And one of the things that the Act, Constitution Act of 1982 recognized the Métis people as part of the Aboriginal sort of recognition. What do you think the effects of this recognition has done to the Métis people.
La reconnaissance, quand c'est arrivé en 1982.
Well, recognition when it occurred, when the Constitution was repatriated in 1982, I was in politics or activist. The alliance of the Laurentian Alliance for Métis and non-status Indians, the Laurentian Alliance, quite shortly. We were overcome. We were, I don't know, it was completely overcome by it. It was a shock. We were incredulous. Politics, of course, evolves. There was a rupture with the Native Council of Canada. There was C-31, which kind of completely upset the whole situation, put everything into imbalance. 20 years later, we're starting once again to resume the conversation, the dialogue with our family and friends out west. A very short example, perhaps, and this might illustrate an answer to our membership, if you will. We don't have the word membership, but our citizens. To define our belonging, our sense of belonging. We had a Guerrier-Pi. Guerrier-Pi is a surname. The Guerrier-Pi, which was in the Metis Nation in Québec, has a picture of Batoche in his family albums. And this is found, in fact, at the National Archives here, the Federal Archives here in Canada. You see the natives, you see Poundmaker, Big Bear, and you see the Métis, manacles on their feet, and you see Guerrier-Pi with the others. Now, those are the ancestors of my grandfather who were there. I mean, direct link. So we presented these documents to the people of Saskatchewan, and it dawned on them, and hey, that's right. There is a Métis Nation. So we come back to Article 35, and we're starting to be recognized now as the commonalities of our people. So as you can see, we take this to heart. We're very passionate and emotional about it, as Mr. St. Aubin and myself. Article 35, to us, it was manna from heaven. It was a miracle for us. Mr. Aubin? A very, very good question, in fact. Well,
is that it was just like a dream come true. All what I say to you is that I'm going to say something here, and I don't like saying this, but I have to say it because it's part of my process.
As long as it's clean.
I said to myself, maybe I will not say that here today, but I will say it. I tried to become an Indian in order for me to be recognized. To be recognized as an Aboriginal person, I had to surrender my identity at one time. But when that came in, it gave me the new hope, the new faith. I feel to the point that when we started organizing with organizations such as the NCC, again the agenda, we were losing the Métis agenda. And I said, no, not again. And I said, we have to organize as Métis, so we have to create a confederacy within the Métis, Métis Confederacy within the Métis National Council. We did that. We did that because we wanted to bring a Métis agenda. And then we realized it was very hard to bring a Métis agenda with First Nation people because they have their own things. They were all the C-31. And in Quebec, we did the same thing, so we realized we have to organize the Métis Nation. Let's stop calling the names. We are a nation of people. We're Métis people, Métis Nation, so we did that. So the thing is that it gave us that hope, you see, that we didn't have to become Indian. I became a chief of a First Nation community in Quebec. I helped to reorganize the Metis Nation of Quebec, the nation of my father. He didn't make me a Metis. I felt so bad after a while when my grandmother told me, "What are you doing? You're not a First Nation person, you're a Métis. Remember that. If your grandfather was there, he would be really upset at you." That's when I understood. I'm very emotional right now. Because you're bringing back what I had to suffer to get through all this. Now, I can smile and I can say there's hope. And I know that the Métis National Council one day will understand the importance of bringing aboard the Métis Nation of Quebec amongst their rank. They have to. They cannot not do it. So what is this Constitution did to us? It divided us for a little while, but now it's bringing us all back together.
I have one more question, and it'll be a short question and hopefully a short response, as we do have another witness. Senator Patterson, please.
Thank you. And thank you very much. Mr. Aubin, you mentioned the membership request with the Métis National Council. I understand that the Quebec Métis Nation requested membership in a letter of 2008 to President Clem Chartier.
That's right.
Could you just tell us, you're optimistic it'll happen. Has there been discussions? Where are you at with that request, may I ask?
We send this letter on principle. Because when you're in politics, you don't go backward, you go forward. Not only we wrote that letter in French or in English, but we also wrote it in Michif. And we got an answer from them, and we realized that they were not ready. They were not ready to look at it right away. And I don't blame the Métis National Council of it. I'll tell you why. Because they remembered our presentation at the Royal Commission in 1993. They remembered that we didn't follow them when they split from the Native Council of Canada. But the thing is we were caught in a catch-22. We were caught between entre l'arbre et l'écorce when we were at the NCC. Because most of the organization was under the control of First Nation people and C31, or non-status Indian wanted to reach their status. And the thing is that, remember what I just told you, is that, you know, like we made mistakes in the past. That was made. It's un chemin de parcours, c'est des erreurs de parcours. But the thing is now we realize that yes, we can send a letter to the president of the Native Council, the Métis Council of Canada, but there's also others. There's the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, Métis Nation of Alberta, and there's also communities. And what a best way to start from the bottom and go up. So that's how we changed our plan. We went to the bottom up. So we started to initiate our self-conversation with the Desjardins in Saint Laurent, and with the president of Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, and other people that always been seeing us around the cycle. So that's how we did it. So the thing is, where it's at, it'll happen. It'll happen. One way or the other, I know it will happen. Because they need us. They cannot disconnect themselves from us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Beaucoup, Monsieur Lachapelle aussi. I truly appreciate you finding the time tonight, and thanks to the committee for the questions. We're going to take a 5-minute break to allow the witnesses to leave and the witness to come in.
Just before we break, I just want to recognize Bob Stevenson, who was one time the president of NWT Métis, and now he's living in Akwesasne. So
thanks for being here today.
Yep.